This right here is my Mac SE, and basically I don't have anything to sell to you on Cyber Monday, but it made me think about computers and how everything has gotten so insane and how our minds work. So this is what I want to talk about today, and a large part of it I got from listening to Michael Singer down in Alachua, Florida, a couple of years ago. I've been down there with my wife a bunch of times. In fact, he inspired me to write my first book, Brink, Don't Go Back to Sleep. And it's about getting caught up in our minds. So this is sort of a pop-up fireside chat. I did one last week when I had a cancellation, and I got a great response to it. And one of the people wanted me to talk a little bit more about meditation and mindfulness. So this kind of all goes along. So bear with me here while I talk to you about the way computers and our minds are programmed. This is my original computer. It's a Mac SE back from 1986 or so. It's sort of a laptop. You see, I used to carry it around in this backpack back and forth to work. And I was down listening to Michael Singer talk about computers and the mind. Now, if you haven't read The Untethered Soul or the Surrender Experiment, both by him, you need to check them out because they are amazing. He went from hiding out in his Volkswagen van meditating to running a multi-billion-dollar software company. And it was all about his surrender to the things that showed up in his life. So we were down there at the Temple of the Universe listening to him a couple of times. And I think it was Christmas a few years ago. He was talking about the way computers were programmed. Now, these days, when computers show up, laptop or whatever it happens to be, they're all pre-programmed with all kinds of software, gaming, and everything. But back when this Mac SE came out, basically, you had an operating system, and that's all you actually had. Jack likes to be part of these fireside chats. So you have an operating system, and then you have to plug in all the various software. Well, think about ourselves and our minds, okay? Basically, when we start out as a young child, we have an operating system, and that is our mind or our consciousness. Now, there's a lot of different ways we could lay this all out if you were listening to the 3 principles of mind, consciousness, and thought. If you're familiar with Michael Newell and Sid Banks and that work, it's one way of looking at it. Byron Katie has a lot of great stuff she talks about in the work with her 4 questions. What it all boils down to is, how is our mind programmed? And how are we going to allow that to sort of overtake us or not at any given point? So when a computer shows up, it basically has an operating system, and that's it. You have to plug in the software that you want to understand what you want. So for example, if you are wanting an accounting program to give you your net profit and loss, then you're going to program in an accounting program. Well, if this computer is only programmed for accounting, and you put in some data that has to do with art and color, or let's say this computer is only programmed for black and white, and all of a sudden color starts going into it, or for male and female, and all of a sudden you get other gender identities, okay? So basically what I'm saying is, you put your software in, or your software is programmed in there for you by your parents, by society, by what the language and culture that you live in. But we all start out basically as a blank operating system. In fact, we all start out as a joyful blank operating system. At least this is my belief. And we have this pure joy in us, as the Dalai Lama would say. And what happens is our programming gets in the way of this joy, okay? So what we need to learn to do in our practice of meditation and mindfulness. And I also want to talk about self-awareness, which my take on self-awareness is a little bit different than mindfulness. Okay, but we'll get there in a moment. We basically are this bundle of joy. This is my grandson Otis when he was first born. And we program in by our environment and all of the stimulus how we understand the world. And what meditation is essentially about is realizing that we have a choice and we can actually step back and look at that programming. So the practice of meditation, and mind you, I am not an expert on meditation, so what I'm sharing here is my take on meditation and how I use it in my life. And using it is the key, because it's not just about isolating yourself and meditating and then going off into the world. No, it's about meditating so you can get to the place where you recognize that all the stuff that's spinning in your mind, in your computer, you learn how to step back and observe it, as I share in Brink, your watcher. You learn how to do that, this witness consciousness, during your meditation practice. Now, if you're interested, on a later session, I can talk about my meditation practice, and I have my own take on that, and maybe you can get some ideas for yourself. But right now, the way that most meditation starts and is focused on is, of course, the breathing, but the idea behind the breathing is to allow your thoughts to go, to escape, so that you can get more at your core. So in stepping away from yourself, there is just so much that you can do to recognize that everything that's spinning in you, whether it's as a result of your emotions that day, when you sit down, maybe you're anxious about something or fearful about something coming up in the future, or maybe you're sad about something, and those emotions also spin off and create thoughts. That's the subject of another talk, the relationship between thoughts and emotions. Recognize what's coming up and where it's coming from, and just begin to realize that we are churning all of this out, and while this is going on inside of our little heads, we have to step back so that we can watch what's happening and allow that to dissipate so that our joy can rise back up to the top. Now, when we practice this in meditation and then we go back out into the world, that's where it's really key, at least from my perspective. It's the usefulness of meditation that's critical. If you cultivate and practice mindfulness during your meditation practice, or however that looks, could be walking or sitting still, drinking your coffee in quiet in the morning, when you begin to get caught up in the craziness of your day, something happens, it triggers you in some level, you get anxious, you get angry, whatever it is, the practice of noticing what's happening will allow you to step back and question that. So it's not an active questioning, it's just a noticing. Wow, I notice that my thoughts are spinning right in this moment. I'm thinking, am I going to remember to explain everything I wanted to talk about? Is Jack going to distract me? But mainly, we want to be able to detach ourselves just enough to catch ourselves before we quickly react to something. So you're having a conversation, somebody triggers you, and you're about to respond and lash back at them because they said something that makes you defensive. Well, if you can insert that watchfulness and notice how their reaction, their remark is beginning to make you react, and then take your breath and in your mind go back to the still quiet place from that morning's meditation or sitting with your coffee, just for a split second. Now, the more you notice, the more you'll realize it's not just about noticing what's about in yourself, all the data of the world is coming into your computer all the time. Everything that's happening inside of you and your mind and your emotions, and everything that's coming at you in the world. I mean, we all know there's lots of stuff going out there right now. But the practice of mindfulness then means that when you walk in your house with the groceries and your car keys in your hand, and you set your groceries down and you just take that one refrigerated item out and you stick it in the refrigerator, mindfulness is realizing that while you set that down to grab something else, you put your keys on the refrigerator shelf, okay? It's not a judgment, it's just, oh, I'll notice I put them there. I had to put them there because I didn't have both my hands free. If you're mindful about it, later on when you're looking at your keys, that will come back to you. If you're not, you'll go crazy looking for your car keys. So mindfulness is about constantly noticing what's happening. In some of the weekend retreats I've been to, I went to a great one called Warrior Monk, where we ate our meals in silence. And we did that so that we could notice and take in the food, the bites, the chewing, the smells, as opposed to eating and talking to somebody or eating and reading. So mindfulness and meditation work together because it helps to cultivate noticing everything that's going on around you as you're walking, the crunching of the leaves. That's why going for walks in nature is so great. Notice the confusion around you. Notice how other people are reacting. Notice if you are judging the way they're reacting or if you're actually taking in the data. In other words, when you meet someone, our natural tendency for our survival instincts is to create a judgment of them. Well, the data that's coming in may be that they look a certain way or they act a certain way. That's just data, raw data coming in. It's not until your little whirling processor puts a judgment on it and spits it out the other end that says, hey, this person is not safe, or they are safe, or I want to get to know them more. But the mindfulness part is simply taking in the data without judgment. Now, what is the difference between mindfulness and self-awareness? And again, this is just my take. But self-awareness is where you turn the mindfulness of the data that's coming in from the world into yourself. So as you are reacting or responding or interacting with the world and the people around you, there is always this small part of you that is aware, cultivating. Again, in my book I call it the watcher, and it's cultivating the noticing of how you're responding and reacting in that given moment. And this is the one key that's going to help you. It helps me, at least. I hope it helps you. That's my gift for Cyber Monday. Hopefully it will help you to not get so caught up inside of that stuff that's beginning to whirl in there. So practice that cultivation of noticing what's happening, and in the world, as stuff's coming at you, as you set your car keys down in the refrigerator, begin to notice, oh, why did I do that? Or that's where I put that. And it's amazing the amount of things that we do in an unconscious way as we're moving about multitasking. So the gift of this Cyber Monday is to go back to something simpler as opposed to all the stuff out there. That's just a few insights that I have. I don't know if they'll be helpful for you at all. I would love it if you appreciate what's in this little pop-up fireside chat, to share it with your friends, particularly those that might be into meditation or mindfulness, or maybe share it with your friends that are stressed out a lot. See if that helps at all. And if you want a few more insights, visit my new website at Newell Inspires. If you subscribe, you can get a little snippet of my next book, which is called the MQ Formula. It's about our magnificence quotient. And please put it in the remarks or email me z@znewellinspires.com with your questions about what you'd like to hear about or what wasn't clear in this broadcast. If you want to know more about meditation practice from my perspective, self-awareness, passion, I got all kinds of great stuff. And really, I want to know what you would like to hear more about. Hopefully, this is valuable to you. So tune in, watch for the Fireside pop-ups. If they happen, it'll be at 12:30. On Wednesdays, we're broadcasting the What's Your Why Wednesday. I have a special guest this week. He's one of the new master brewers in Lexington, and we'll be talking about his passion. So until then, enjoy your Cyber Monday and be mindful. See what comes of it. Take care.